welcome to another episode of Before Brunch TV, a show where women are pouring into each other and then their glasses. I'm your host, Stephanie Watkins, and today I have some amazing women here with me, and we're talking about race, something that's really on all of our minds, and I know we've all experienced some sort of positivity or negativity from it, and so we're gonna have a really open and honest conversation this morning. So first of all, thank you ladies for joining me and being so brave and courageous, because you don't know what you're getting yourself into. So the first thing I just want to kind of go through and ask each one of you, how would you identify your race? Like you individually, what's your race?
Black.
Okay.
I have to say, I've never been asked that question. So I think that's relevant to say, but I'm white. If I were to identify myself, I'd probably say I'm Irish. But again, never been asked that in my entire life.
First time for everything.
I am biracial. I say I'm biracial, so Japanese and Black.
Okay, wonderful. And so do you feel like you fit your race's, we'll say, stereotype? Like we all know there's certain stereotypes that come from each race. So do you feel like you fit your race's stereotype, and or what is your race's stereotype that you've heard maybe from other people?
To a certain degree, yes. I am front-facing Black woman, whatever that means to you. But I think I've realized that even my definition of Black is very limited. I come from the South. I grew up in church and in hip hop, and that's one very specific brand of Black to me that as I've met people throughout my years and traveling, I realized that even my version of Black is inaccurate for everyone. So I guess, yeah, I do fit certain stereotypes.
I'm realizing more and more as we talk about things like this that I've never had to really consider questions like that. And so it's the first time for me to really look inward and say, have you ever thought about how you show up in the world amongst everybody else around you? I guess perhaps I fit the stereotypes of all-American girl, freckles, Irish, red hair, although it's blondish right now. So I've always felt like I fit in, and I've honestly never really given it thought, which is something that's really weighing on my mind recently, of realizing that it's not like that for everyone else.
So being that I'm biracial, I feel like I don't fit in either stereotypes, like the Black stereotype or the Asian. I mean, there are things that I might do that's Black or Asian, but I don't really feel like I fit in either category. So I kind of create my own like Blasian, I don't know, maybe I might be a stereotypical Blasian, but I can't really say I fit into either categories. I don't feel Asian enough to be Asian, or I don't feel Black enough to be Black. So I just kind of feel like I relate more so to myself if I say I'm mixed.
Yeah, I never really realized how much like where you grew up really plays a role in how you view yourself in race. Like I grew up in a place where it was predominantly a white area, upper middle class, but I never felt like Black enough for the Black kids, but like white enough for the white kids. What do you all think are what are some of the implicit biases you have had about different races?
I think I've always been guarded. I think that I've always had my defenses up because of things that I've been through. So oftentimes it's unnecessary, and it probably blocks me from building genuine relationships. And I definitely think since things have been politically charged, there's times where it's more intense for me, and I'm aware of it. So I also have been put in many different environments where I'm like, oh, we actually have way more in common than I thought we would. So it's made me look in the mirror. I'm assuming that everyone's racist, and really everyone's not. And people are people. So it's allowed me to peel back the layers for myself more so, looking and judging others.
So it's prevented you from building relationships with people of another race?
I think that I'm more open around people that I identify with from the beginning. So I'm not as vulnerable as I could be. And I didn't realize that. So now I see it and I'm like, oh, I'm a part of the problem too.
Wow.
Admittedly, I feel like this is a really scary question to answer, but realizing I grew up in a military environment. I wasn't military, but everyone around me was. So I feel like I grew up in a very diverse community. So I didn't give it much thought. I have a very diverse group of close friends, and as a woman of faith, I believe that the church is made up of every person of every nationality, every cultural, and that God is represented in all of them. But even with that, this time period and really these conversations have forced me to think about what are the parts of me that are responding in ways that I don't know or that I didn't recognize. I think it's too simple to just say, oh, I'm not a racist and I don't act like that and I have, tons of different friends. Because I think that's just not true. I think that there's still things that I do inherently or that I think. When I see somebody walking down the street and I wonder if I'm in danger, going, what was that feeling? Why do I feel that? Right. Is that feeling right? Is that feeling fair? Would I feel that way if it was somebody else? And those are all things I'm looking at now, because I think even with the best intentions, and even with the most normalized, diverse environment, there are still things that you do and that you think and that you say that can potentially hurt somebody else without you wanting it to. And it's important to look at all of those.
Absolutely. And that's really honest. I think we all kind of do that. I think people just get a perception of, like, let's say, for instance, if you're white and you see somebody of another race walking down the street, you'll, kind of, let's say, clutch your purse. But I'm like, I've done that before too. It's not, and I think that's kind of one of the misconceptions too. What are your thoughts about that, Rika?
Oh, well, so growing up, I was teased for looking Asian. And I took it real personally when it was like from the Black community because, I'm like, I'm half Black. Why are they joking? But they weren't seeing that. They just saw like an Asian face. So like I would go home crying every day. Like, I don't feel accepted by my Black peers. Why, So I feel like, that has made an impact on me as I grew up. Like, I'm not accepted by the Black community. Maybe I'm not Black. Maybe I'm just Asian, So that played a role in how I saw, different cultures and different people and how I took that, certain things that when people say to me or the way they treated me. So I kind of felt like I was more Asian, I guess, growing up. And so I was like, kind of like, oh, I'm not Black. Black people don't like me. They don't accept me. They're teasing me. But then as I grew older, it was like, oh, I'm cool now. I'm like the it thing because I'm mixed and, but I didn't look at it that way, because growing up, I was just, insecure about how I looked and who I was. So I don't know. I just think it's kind of, for me, it's I'm not really sure where I stand sometimes, with like identity issues and things like that. So.
Wow. Did it, when you said you were teased by the Black community, did it make you resentful of Black people, or like did it make you like not want to have Black friends, or? Not
necessarily not want to have Black friends. It actually made me want to have more Black friends because I'm like, I am Black, but honestly, growing up as a child, you don't think that way. You're just like, oh, they don't like me, so maybe all Black people are this way, But I knew that it wasn't the case because I had Black family members that accepted me. Yeah. So it was just the outside world that was like, I don't know, maybe I'm just not Black,
You said something that was actually really key, and I kind of wanted to talk about too. You said then all of a sudden your race or your mix was like a trend. You saw like in the music videos, like everybody's Blasian. I think sometimes when Black girls saw that, it was always like, oh, guys only want mixed girls. Or now it's almost like, did you ever feel like you and your race and your mixture was just a trend?
I don't, because even though, I do see like them announcing like, Blasians on the rap songs and things, I still didn't feel like we were accepted or we were, a trend. Like I was just like, oh, well, at least they're acknowledging Blasians, but we're still kind of on the back burner. Like we're not, I don't know, like the undiscovered race or something, so I never, it did make me feel better as I grew older because I was like, okay, I'm no longer being teased for the way that I looked. I'm actually being praised, so.
Kim, when you like the music video culture and you've been around like that world, what are your thoughts on that, like of mixed race? She's like, we don't have enough time.
Because I, even where I fall in that line, I lean on the benefiting factor of that spectrum. So in high school, it was always something where I felt guilty about. Like, I've worked with people and I've seen darker skinned girls get treated drastically different than me. Obviously, at the end of the day, the more exotic you look, whether you're mixed race or like whatever leans more exotic, is what has been favored and still is. I think darker skinned women are getting more praise and we're acknowledging it, but that's the way it is. But since I can, like, some people may think I'm mixed race at times, so I never understood that in high school. I was like, why is that a benefit, you know? And I don't like seeing different people get treated differently. And I've always been that way. So I think it's prevalent, you know, like looking at you, I'm like, you're the ideal, you know? And so it's interesting to like hear you say like you didn't necessarily feel like it was a trend, because I'm like, oh, like anything different, exotic, long hair, curly, you know, light skin has always been the thing.
Wow, that's very interesting perspectives. And I know, you know, the media plays a role in how we all view race or experience things. And with all the things that have been going on this year within the media, you can't escape it. So what have been y'all's thoughts about what's going on, or how has what's been going on really opened your eyes to a new level? You know, we've seen the killings, and we've seen people sentenced and not sentenced. How has that really opened your eyes, especially in 2020? I know we all knew it was there, but now I just feel like this year you really can't run anymore.
I'll start because I'm gonna start with coronavirus, because initially when coronavirus hit, everyone was like, oh, if you're Asian, you got coronavirus, so you brought it over. So I was like, okay, I'm Asian. They might think I brought coronavirus, or, you know, they might, you know, discriminate on my mom or something. And then so once coronavirus never really died down, but then once the racial issues started coming, I'm like, okay, well, I'm Black too. So it's like, oh, I'm gonna get, you know, attacked for being Black. But, you know, so both instances with the coronavirus and the racial issues kind of hit home to me, because I'm both racist.
I'm just realizing, I know, like deep breath. You know, and Steph, you know, I've had a very complex life from childhood on, but even now I'm just realizing how simple it was compared to some of the issues that you have faced, and just how complex that is. And just realizing more and more as I keep having these conversations, the stuff that I just never had to think about, and how monumental that is.
What are some of the things you feel like you haven't had to think about?
I've never had to think about if I fit in. I've never had to think about, well, what race do you identify with? I've never had to think about, you know, well, to hear somebody say, I'm not Asian enough to be Asian, I'm not Black enough to be Black. Like understanding the complexities and seeing and hearing the pain when you're describing that, and realizing that was just never in my bag of issues. I had a very big bag, but some really core ones were I escaped. And, you know, to even think about having it connected to the virus, like just like next level, like, oh my gosh, there's so much stress that we're all under right now. And I can't even imagine adding that to the pile and just how weighty that is.
Yeah.
And I think that that's something that I'm coming away from with this whole thing, because I've always been a community builder, particularly among women. And as a woman of faith, believe that God loves everyone, and that love is just the undercurrent that should really be driving everyone's actions. And I've seen Christians do that poorly, probably more poorly than non-believers in a lot of different ways. So I guess the closest I can come to even identifying with what you're saying is being a woman of faith, and knowing that there's a lot of stereotypes and bias that come along with that, because of some people who have done some really bad things that to me don't characterize who I am. But that's still, I think, a very simplified version of what other people are experiencing. And I think that for a while I thought, well, if I just live well and love others, that was enough. And I think I've done a good job of being a good friend and listening to those stories and trying to understand that pain. But it wasn't until my children really responded to everything that was going on that I realized that it wasn't enough to just live well and do well myself, that I had to build up a voice and show up in the conversation and be visible and not play it safe. And to be honest, this type of a conversation is terrifying for somebody like me, because there's a really high likelihood that I'm going to say something really stupid that somebody's going to take the wrong way.
It's not stupid, it's a learning lesson.
But knowing that I need to show up in that, and that came from my children. I have 9-year-old twin boys who are complete polar opposites. They look nothing alike. And they're just completely confounded by this issue. They do not understand why this exists. They, you know, well, I thought that the judges said this wasn't okay. Like, so I thought that we stopped this a long time ago. I don't understand. And they're completely baffled and just heartsick over their perception of authority and how the human race operates as a whole. They feel they can't trust the government. Well, if the judges say we have to act this way and people aren't acting this way, how does this work? And if God tells us to love everybody, how come there are people that don't love everybody? And realizing that they just didn't know.
Yeah.
And that their whole idea of the world is being shattered, watching people be horrible to one another. And I need to teach them to recognize injustice, to stand up for it, to participate in the conversation, that it's not enough for them to just be well in themselves, that they have to take a stand, because that's the only way it gets better.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I'm doing that well, but I'm trying to.
Well, thank you first for showing up. I've known you for a while, and so I think it does. I mean, I know we always talk about other people in other races having courage to stand up, but I mean, we've always felt like we've had to stand up, but it's nice to have other people who will show up. So thank you for sharing that. Kim, your thoughts?
I didn't know I could be like more shattered. So I think it's taken a toll on me in a very big way, but I'm also a silver lining person. I know sometimes things get worse before they get better. It's hard for me to know my parents went to segregated schools and have to see me at a march. But I see the progress and I see how other people are reacting. I think we're having the tough conversations. I see people running for office. I see people getting involved. So I definitely see the light and I feel hopeful right now. But there's moments where I'm like, can we just go somewhere else and start over? I definitely, the reality for me is I don't know if this would be different for my children or my children's children. So I think the time frame of it has been the biggest reckoning for me, you know, realizing that regardless of what I do, how much I try to move the needle and do all the things, my efforts aren't in vain, but I don't, you know, we're far, very far away than from where I thought we were. Yeah. But on the flip side, you know, things are happening, so I'm here for it, and I'm always gonna be on the front lines of justice.
Yeah, I think this time, like, I knew it was always happening. I think I was so surprised. I mean, everybody's like on social media, you know, and you're like, there's certain people where you're like, man, I can't believe this person didn't speak out. And they're like all up into the culture. But then I saw so many people also speaking out like, wow, I didn't know it was this bad. And I'm just like, but we always knew. So when you guys are around, maybe like certain people, you feel like you've had to change.
You know, I'm the biggest asset to whomever or whatever I'm working in when I show up as myself. I mean, white people love Blackness, you know, so I don't ever feel like I'm been put in a position where I needed to change, you know. I think when I'm myself, that's when I get the best reaction and the best work. I show up as myself, but I also don't work for anybody, so there's that. So, but in my past, like, I've been the only Black person in the room, but I think I didn't like the pressure of feeling like the conduit to Blackness. I'm like, I can only give you so much, like, so, but I think I show up as myself now for sure. And I don't think I ever drastically changed in the past.
I think there's been a lot of times as a Christian where I've shown up differently, where I felt like I was being more of a chameleon than being who I am, particularly as it relates to my profession and being in the corporate world and being an executive in male-dominant environments in the corporate lane. So I guess by proxy, I can somewhat relate to that, of feeling like there are things that I do when I show up in my job that I don't do when I show up in my church, and the frustration of that, of feeling like I'm not always being myself. But I think when it comes to this particular issue and the people I engage with and my friends and family, I think probably now more than ever, I do a better job of showing up as I am, good, bad, or otherwise, and really just trying to strip back all of those layers. It's not perfect. I think I'm a lot more cautious. I think if anything's changed today that I want to work through, it's that there's a little bit of anxiety of, in order to have authentic conversation, you have to be willing to show up as you are. But if I'm showing up as me, but I'm like very carefully filtering my words to make sure that I'm not saying anything that's going to toe the line, I think that something is lost in the conversation and that progress is not really made. And so I'm trying to deal with this feeling of anxiety of, did I just offend her? Did I say the wrong thing? Did I use the wrong pronoun? And agonizing over it afterwards, did I hurt them? Not wanting to participate in that, but realizing that I have to work through that anxiety and show up as myself and trust that when the intent is to come to a conversation like this to heal and grow together, that there's grace on both sides of the conversation, and just hope that everybody embraces grace when I say something stupid and learn from it, or do something that probably wasn't exactly how I meant to say it. So I'm trying to be me, but I'd be lying if I didn't say there wasn't anxiety in every word that I say.
Yeah.
I think there was one point in my life where I kind of dumbed down my blackness. When I was working for a company that was white dominant, male dominant, and when I say dumb down my blackness, meaning pulling my hair back, in a ponytail, not having this, curly fro, or using my words wisely, trying to speak proper. And I've experienced some racial stuff when I was at that company. Since I've left, though, I kind of was like, why am I trying to dumb myself down or be someone that I'm not, to try to fit in or be accepted by, this company? And so ever since I left the company, I just felt like free to be whoever I want, however I want to wear my hair, however I want to speak, So I think at that point, that was the most where I kind of was not true to myself.
Yeah, I think I've been there, where you have to, I think I've never been into an interview where I didn't wear my hair straight. That's something that I feel like we have to think about, because when sometimes, first of all, it's way more accepted now for now with the whole natural hair movement. Black women can go and the curls and the coils, but it also has to be a certain type of curl. You know what I mean? So it's I've never gone to a place where I feel like, okay, if it's going to be the majority white people, I can't wear my hair curly. I've just gotten to the place maybe over a year ago where I wore my hair curly in the first time for TV, because before I was like, no, it's got to be straight, or I've got to have a sew-in, or I got to do whatever that is, because otherwise I feel like people will look at me or look at my hair as unkempt, because it's not straight and silky or have the beautiful, the world's beautiful curl. So,
but I feel, we're probably in the same exact boat there. I've definitely always straightened my hair for interviews. So yeah, but I feel prettier with my hair straight. I just have to say that, it's maybe not about them, it's about me. It gives me more confidence. That's what I'm used to. That makes me feel more like a boss. I haven't gotten to a place with my curly hair where I feel confident in it. So I don't know if it's they are gonna think I'm better. It's I do. So that's a whole mind blown, but I'm trying. I don't know. I'm still, I have 32-inch ponytail right now, so clearly,
yeah, I don't know. It's a journey for sure.
Yeah.
How do you ladies feel like race plays a role within politics? Without getting, super deep on parties, how do you feel and then what do you think about it? Do you think it should play a role in, your political choice, or however that may be?
Fundamentally, I think that every person has a right and should be, particularly in our country, seen and heard and considered when it comes to how we function as a society and as a culture. I think we do a horrible job of that. And I think, it's obvious. I think anyone who thinks that we're doing a good job at this is clearly operating in some other planetary system that I'm just not existing in. I think it's very obvious where the standards are set when it comes to the undercurrent of this country and politics. I don't relate to any particular party. As a woman of faith, I answer to a higher authority and I answer to God. And to say that one political party or the other has encapsulated that perfectly is just wrong. It depends on the issue. It depends on what we're talking about. And I decide based on what my core tenets of faith tell me, that everyone deserves to be loved, everyone deserves to be seen, everyone deserves to have opportunity. And you can fall on either side of the fence on party lines, depending on who you're talking to and what their stance is. I think the challenge that we face now, I'm so excited, you know, and again, as a female too, to see females having better representation and still having to claw their way to be heard, to see people of color making a attempt to show up in places where they haven't been welcome before and probably still feel very unwelcome, and to courageously fight that fight. But also realizing that whatever choices we make in November and beyond, their humanity is still very, very real. And there is no perfect answer. There is no perfect policy. There are going to be shortcomings, probably for the rest of the time. And so I'm just trying to make those decisions based on who I think is going to get closer to that love and respect and honor and dignity for all people. But there's no easy answer.
Thank you for that.
I'm not really into politics, so I can't really speak on that, but I do want to say that, you know, I love to see people of color in that role, in those roles, as well as women, just because we're so used to seeing white men in that position. So to see different colors, different races, different genders, it is something that I would want to see.
Yeah. Well, I like to +1 on both of those answers.
You have a whole different connection though too. Like you're really into this world.
I'm in it. And I think a lot of people have been traditionally left out. So I think like politics needs like a rebrand, because we have to be involved because it impacts our daily lives. So I think historically groups have been marginalized. And so it's like, it's not appealing because it's messed up. You know, like it's hard to participate in a system where you know has systemically not worked for you. But I think the only solution is to participate and get in the inside and change it. So that's where I am. But as it relates to race, obviously it's super ecstatic to see women and people of color, Black people running for office. As it relates to race is Black and brown people have been left out. So the doors are open and it's time. And our time is now, and I love being in it. You know, politics is like the rap game. You know what I mean? Like there's lots of transferable skills. So I really hope everyone sees themselves and finds ways to get engaged, because, you know, we have to change it ourselves.
Well, ladies, I really appreciate each of your perspectives. Y'all all brought something very different to the table and very eye-opening. So I hope everybody watching really got something from it too. And, you know, I like to leave with a word of affirmation and positivity. So if you could pick up your affirmation card, and we're going to read them aloud to leave everyone with a good word. So Rika, you want to start?
Wait, hold on.
Oh, yours? Okay, you can pick another one. Pick another one.
That was my life. All right. I let go of fear so that fear can let go of me.
I am in control of my thoughts, feelings, and choices.
Kimberly?
I enjoy my own company.
And then mine says, I am enough. So, yeah, I mean, you know, this is great. I thank you again so much. And for you all watching, for more information on Before Brunch TV, you can follow us on social media at Before Brunch TV. We'll see you next time.